What a win for the Boston Celtics. They really needed that. I think a bunch of guys stepped up. Grant Williams, how he played Joel Embiid was incredible. Derrick White changed the entire game with a couple of block shots, one in the fourth quarter that just was the entire turning point. And I'm going to talk about it all right now on the Locked On Celtics podcast.
Be ever ready. Recognize the city of champs. Boston, baby, we do what you can't. Locked on number 18, Tatum and Brown, J-team, step back. We gon' wet that and slay teams. Of course, the Celtics, who else could it be? Screaming like KG with the Larry O.B. Karalis above average, assessing the team status. Best daily pod, no cap, salary matching. Clutch like Bird the DJ, keep John on replay. Prime time, dapping up the truth on the sideline. Raining J's, how it started, raising banners, how we finished. Locked on Celtics pod, home of the winners. B.
Hey there, welcome back to the Locked On Celtics podcast right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day, and I'm here for you every day with a free, fresh podcast dropped directly to your device if you're a subscriber. So make sure you're subscribed wherever you get your podcasts. The show also is on YouTube. If you want to subscribe there, I would love it if you did. Check it out. Hop in the comment section. Join a growing community of Celtics fans there. Ring the bell there to get notified when I drop a new episode. I'm John Corrales. I cover the Celtics for Boston Sports Journal. I've also written a book called The Boston Celtics All-Time All-Stars. I played ball once upon a time, and I'm also hosting a live conversation with Kendrick Perkins on February 21st. We're at the Armory in Somerville talking about his book, The Education of Kendrick Perkins. Go to the Armory in Somerville, go to their website. You can get tickets. $40 gets you a book, gets you in, hear the discussion with me and Perk, and then you can ask some questions. We're doing a live audience Q&A. So check that out there. Today, I'm talking to you after the Boston Celtics 106-99 win over the Philadelphia 76ers. This is just such a great win, a much needed win. Not in the, they were struggling and they needed to end a losing streak kind of win. They needed this win to just feel good. Like they needed a win where everything kind of went well and there was generally a good story behind this. I say generally because they lost Jaylen Brown at the end of the first half, where he and Jayson Tatum were going for a rebound and Tatum came across and his left elbow caught Jaylen right in the cheek, and he went down, and it turns out that there is a fracture in that cheek, and it looks like he'll be out at least through the All-Star break. So that's a very unfortunate situation for Jaylen Brown. Not only is he going to miss time, he's going to miss time for the Celtics, but hey, second time making the All-Star team, we were looking forward to seeing him play, seeing him up against Jayson Tatum or playing with Jayson Tatum in the All-Star game. For him not to be a part of that is very disappointing, very disappointing. Now, he may still go and be part of the festivities, but that's going to, it seems, keep him out. We'll see if that changes. So hopefully he's a fast healer and just an unfortunate situation. Aside from that, the Celtics came into this game without Marcus Smart, still nursing the ankle injury. Robert Williams and Al Horford added to the injury list. Al Horford, a late add with right knee swelling. That's not great. So they held him out from the game. Rob out, Horford out, Smart out. You lose Jaylen at right before the half. Jayson Tatum having just a terrible shooting night. Offensively, 12 points for Tatum. Laying all that out, if you didn't watch the game, if you're just hopping onto the podcast, and you're like, hey, let me listen to see how this went. And I'm laying all this out. They missed 3 starters. They lost another starter. Really, you played the whole second half without 4 starters, and your other guy, the MVP candidate, shoots 5 of 15, 1 of 5 from 3, and has 12 points. And we're talking about a win. We're talking about a win. Yeah, we're talking about a win. And the reason I say this is such a feel good, they needed this kind of win, is because over the past, I don't know, 10 games or so, maybe longer, the Celtics have just kind of been I don't know, up and down. They had, a great win against Brooklyn. And then, the Phoenix game, it was and disappointing. And there's just this chatter of, hey, you got to trade Grant Williams, and hey, you got to trade this guy. And how are you going to get some help in here? It's very obvious they need some help. And Joe Mazzulla, he doesn't know what he's up. He's over his head. It's all of those things were just kind of hanging around the Celtics. And it wasn't a great vibe. It wasn't a great feeling around here. By the way, today's show brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel Sportsbook is the official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn today to get started. To get this win, it felt like everybody came together. Everybody picked each other up. You knew that they were starting off shorthanded without three starters. And I sat there thinking, hey, you're going to need Jaylen Brown and Jayson Tatum to go off. I wrote it in my little mini preview on Boston Sports Journal before the game. I said, if they're going to win this, it's going to have to be one of those 60-point combined Jaylen and Jayson nights. I didn't think they were going to win with, what did they end up with? 16 points combined? Maybe I just got I can just say, I meant to say, I said 16. You heard 60? I said 16 for sure. I didn't think this was going to be possible. And, but the Celtics did a great job. First of all, hitting shots, creating open looks and knocking them down. And kudos to Blake Griffin getting the start, going out there and knocking down shots. They did a great job defensively. Grant Williams defensively, and I'll get more into individual guys in the second segment. And then later on, I'll talk about Joe Mazzulla. And I have to mention some of the trades that are happening, because I was sitting there at the Garden trying to write my column, my game column, and all of a sudden it's just trade after trade after trade. So I got to mention those at the end before I wrap up the show. But Celtics did a great job defensively. Celtics got great performances from the supporting cast. You go through Grant Williams, Blake Griffin, Derrick White, Sam Hauser, Malcolm Brogdon. Those guys combined for 84 points of the 106. That's just a massive contribution. That's not what you expect. The Celtics bench, which was decimated because the bench became the starters, but you still had Malcolm Brogdon out on the bench. The Celtics just make sure that he stays there. And Sam Hauser comes back and is hitting shots, and the Celtics bench outscores Philly's bench 41-21. I don't know how that's possible, but they did it. The Philly bench had nothing. Tyrese Maxey was terrible. Georges Niang couldn't hit a damn thing. Matisse Thybulle came in for defensive reasons, and he was okay, but Shake Milton did not much. Montrezl Harrell, garbage. Like, the whole bench, the Sixers bench was terrible. But the Celtics bench shouldn't have even been that great, because, again, Grant Williams not on the bench, starting. Blake Griffin not on the bench, starting. Jaylen Brown means, he leaves, and so Brogdon has to start the second half, so he gets an added opportunity, and they still put together just these monster, just a monster performance. So I just felt like it felt good. This is a win that you come out and you say, man, that just felt good. That was the equivalent of just like a nice big hearty meal, like a big chicken parm and spaghetti, and just you come out of that and you just tap your belly. You go, oh, that was good. That was satisfying. That was really good. It could be the best win of the season for the Celtics. I put it up there with that win over Toronto in Toronto, where the Celtics were down in the first half and they came back and they talked about making choices. And I thought that was a really good win. This one goes right there with it and might be better in a lot of regards. So let's get into some of the individual stuff, because I thought individually each of these guys needs some time to be lauded on this podcast. I'll do that next. First, today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. This year, the only app you need for your Super Bowl party is FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. We love having FanDuel on board here at Locked On. They're the #1 sportsbook in America. We're the #1 podcast network in America. So it's a perfect match. And you'd be a perfect match for FanDuel, even if you've never used it before. In fact, that's better, because you can download FanDuel right now and get a no-sweat first bet on Super Bowl 57 and get up to $3,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. You just got to go to FanDuel.com/lockedon to claim your no-sweat first bet on Super Bowl 57. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. They let you bet on everything from the money line to point spreads to who will score a touchdown, the prop bets that are so much fun. The FanDuel Sportsbook app is safe. It's secure. It's super easy to use. When you win money, you want your money immediately. They give it to you instantly. So very excited to have FanDuel on board. Again, FanDuel.com/lockedon to claim your no sweat first bet. Make every moment more at FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Please gamble responsibly. Trade deadline is at 3 p.m., mere hours away, maybe past it by the time you listen to this podcast, but we're right there, and we're going to have you covered on Locked On. Starting at 2 o'clock on the Locked On NBA YouTube feed. Hop on there at 2 o'clock. You're going to hear reaction to all of these trades, and there have been a lot of them. I will be there hosting it alongside Nick Angstead and Pat the Designer. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to have real fun with this. It's just a nice casual conversation. We'd love to have you join us on the Locked On NBA YouTube feed. Kevin Durant going to Phoenix, Russell Westbrook going to Utah, with D'Angelo Russell going to LA. There's just Jakob Poeltl going to Toronto. So much to talk about. I'll get into that in a little bit in a few minutes, but hop on that YouTube channel. At 2 o'clock, we'll talk about it. Let's talk about this game, and I'm just going to run down individually these guys, because this is the type of game where so many guys made an impact. I feel like they need their moment. So I'm just going to work down the box score here. Grant Williams, okay, 15 points, 8 rebounds, 5 assists. That's such a nice game from Grant Williams, but not only did he hit 4 of 6 from 3, which is exactly what the Celtics need for him to hit the 3-pointers, get those open 3-pointers and hit them. Grant offensively stepped up. There was a stretch there in the first quarter where Blake hits a bunch of 3-pointers, and I'll talk about both of these guys together, I guess. In my head, I'm like going back and forth. Blake comes out, and I talk about clutch baskets all the time. You know what I'm talking about. Clutch baskets happening at any point in the game. They can happen anywhere. And this is the first for even me. I'm going to say that Blake Griffin's first 3-pointers to start the game right away, those end up, in retrospect, being clutch baskets. You don't think about it in the moment, but those end up being clutch baskets, because the Celtics were down 7-0, and Griffin comes out and hits a 3-pointer. So instead of it being an 8-0 or a 9-0 lead, it becomes 9-3. And then they go off on a run. He hits another 3. There's a real possibility here that Blake's 3-pointers, if they didn't fall, could have become an 18-2 start to the game for Philly. And that changes the entire dynamic of how this game goes. Because if it starts out 18-2, then the Sixers get their confidence. Joel Embiid starts to dominate because there's nothing that Joel Embiid loves more than playing with a lead. He loves going out there and being a front runner, and when there's a lead, he's dominant. But it was 7-3, then it was 9-6, and then another 3-pointer made it 11-9 to Boston, 11-9 Boston. That stretch from Blake Griffin gave the Celtics a huge lead. So I kind of started talking about Grant. I shifted into Blake before. You'll see that I'm talking about this because after Blake hit those shots, Grant steps up and takes over and hits for he hits 8 of the next 11 points for the Celtics. But defensively, I think Grant really was great defensively. He had to take on Joel Embiid, and he handled Embiid really, really well and pushed Embiid out of the spots where he wanted to catch the ball, made him catch the ball. Late in the game, there were a couple of possessions where Joel caught it around the free throw line, and he wanted to catch it a little deeper, and he just didn't fight for that position. And Grant did a great job. They talk about doing your work early, getting Joel to push him out further, 2, 3, 4 feet. Then when he turns and faces Grant Williams, he's like, oh man, I'm like 14 feet away. He's not going to do the hard work. He's just not going to do the hard work to get to where he wants to go, because Grant is a low center of gravity. He's really, really strong. So Embiid says, I got height on this guy. I'm just going to shoot over the top of him. Once he missed that first mid-range, that fade away from the top of the key somewhere in there, I was like, okay, I feel good about this game. I start to write my post-game story. I try to put the framework together, and I'm putting the flow of the game together. I'm trying to figure out what the headlines from the game are. And so a lot of times it's hard to, when it's a close game, you can't do a lot of the writing because it's close, too close to tell what the flow of the game is and how is it going to be a win. Is it going to be a loss? I don't know. So once those shots missed, I was like, I'm writing this as a win. I'm starting to write everything as a win. My headlines are winning headlines, not why they lost, why they won. The turning point, I'm putting down the turning point as why the Celtics were able to win the game. All of that stuff, I start laying it down because I knew Embiid, you can tell if the Sixers are going to win that game, he's going to the basket, he's drawing fouls. If they're losing that game, he's taking jumpers. And he was taking jumpers. It was jumper Embiid time. So I thought Grant did a wonderful job there. So that Grant Williams, Blake Griffin combination was huge in the first half. And then Malcolm Brogdon had a stretch there right after them where he was big. And then he started the second half. He had a drive and dunk. You don't see Malcolm have a drive and dunk. In fact, so you don't see that. And you also don't see him smile a ton after games. When he gets up there and talks, he's very matter of fact. And I asked him about the dunk, and an actual smile came across his face. He's like, I'm not much of a high flyer. So yeah, the guys had fun with that. He came back to the bench, and everybody was just like, whoa, hello. Nice. I thought Brogdon, this is the exact type of game where you get this from Brogdon, Blake Griffin, Grant Williams, and then you throw Sam Hauser into this. 14 points on 4 of 4 shooting from 3. This is exactly what makes the Celtics dominant. This is the type of game where when the Celtics were scoring 140 something points in the early part of the season, this is what was happening. Grant was hitting shots. You get some outlier performance from somebody. Hauser's coming in and hitting shots. Brogdon is dominating that second unit. They put up 106 points with 16 combined points from Tatum and Brown. You tack on 30 because they're going to combine for 46 easily. You tack on 40 in a good performance or even more. Well, here you go, 146. So that's the type of game where when the Celtics were dominant, they were getting these types of performances. Now, obviously, you're not going to get 4 of 6 from Grant every night. You're not going to get Blake Griffin playing at all a lot of times, or 4 of 4 from Sam Hauser. The Celtics, 19 of 35 from 3 was their best performance of the season, 54%, 54.3. And people in Philly might want to say, Joel Embiid after the game did in fact say, hey, they hit 19 3-pointers, we hit 10. When you get outscored by 27 points from 3, you're going to lose the game. And okay, fine, but that's not how this went really. This was a good performance from the Celtics. Good defense on Embiid. They did a good job. They had Philly had some really bad shooting for sure, but the Celtics really worked to get those shots. And I got to give a shout out to Jayson Tatum. Not a great game from him at all. Obviously, a bad shooting game, but 9 assists, 8 rebounds. He did have the 4 turnovers. They were really more prevalent early. They did a good job in the second half of limiting those turnovers. And Tatum, look, you get double teamed. He made the right play out of the double teams. He did a good job out of those double teams. I think he was pretty good. So I feel like they had a ton of great performances, and hey, off night from Tatum, but he made the most of that off night to help get other guys going, whether it was by assist, which he had 9, or by hockey assist. I'm sure when the secondary assists are counted, he'll have plenty of those as well. I didn't talk about Derrick White yet. I didn't talk about Joe Mazzulla yet. I'll talk about those guys in just a minute. Derrick White was really he's on a roll for the Celtics right now. 19 points in this game, 8 of 13, 3 of 6, 6 rebounds, 3 of 6 from 3, 6 rebounds, 3 assists. Really nice performance from him there. But 2 more block shots. 1 out of the corner. I think he caught Montrezl Harrell out of nowhere. But the real block, the real turning point of this game was with just under 9 minutes to go. Derrick White actually turns the ball over, and there go the Sixers out on the break. And it looks like Tobias Harris has a step on everybody, and it feels like, okay, things are starting to slip away. But you can see on the play, if you go look it up, I can't show it to you right now, but if you're watching on YouTube, obviously I can't show it to you if you're listening to the podcast because that's impossible. But if you remember the play, you'll see Derrick White just chugging. He puts his head down. He puts that head down, and you start pumping those arms, and you see him like, I got to go make a play. And he goes and he catches Harris right at the rim, right on the cusp of, you can't challenge it. You probably can't call it a goaltend. It was right on the edge. He gets there just in the nick of time. So it's a 7-point game. That would have made it a 5-point game. But instead, they come down. It goes over to Sam Hauser. He hits a 10-point game. So it's a 5-point swing. Instead of being down just 5, they are suddenly down 10. That is the turning point in the game because they never were able to tie the game up again. They got it close. Jayson Tatum came back in, and Matisse Thybulle came in and did a good job defending him one-on-one, and they weren't able to generate a lot of the same looks. And Tatum started to settle for a couple of 3-pointers. The ball movement kind of died. It was not the best stretch of the game for Tatum by any means, but the 10-point lead that they built, and thank you, Derrick White, for building that, helping build that. That was what ended up holding up for the rest of the game. And then Joe Mazzulla, I gotta shout out Joe Mazzulla. If you're gonna criticize Joe Mazzulla for the way he has been coaching. You got to give him credit for the way he coached in this game. Great decision to start Blake Griffin. That worked out well. He did a good job. He drew, another charge drawn from him. He obviously hit a bunch of shots. That's great. So that the personnel decisions worked out. Working through that and getting the guys to be prepared. He pushed all the right buttons. They came out of the half and there was no letdown. He had everybody prepared, ready to go. Calling the right plays, out of timeouts. The play, was it third quarter where they had 0.5 left and he calls a timeout, or fourth quarter? No, it was the fourth quarter. Because it was the end. Right. It was down the stretch in the fourth quarter. I'm replaying it in my head because that was going to be a use it or lose it timeout. And I thought maybe they should have called a timeout earlier in that stretch after a 3-pointer. Right? Because I was thinking, hey, there's 4 minutes to go. Let's give these guys a break. I can call another timeout in a minute because they had 4 timeouts at that point. It was like somebody hits a 3-pointer. Might have been Thibault hit a 3-pointer. I probably would have called a timeout at that point. And he didn't. And it actually worked out because you get that possession, 0.5 left. He draws up a great play. You get a timeout to call the play. You have a third timeout there because it was a little bit more than 3 minutes. You could, if they defended it well, and you were at 4 seconds on the count to inbound the ball, you still had an extra timeout there as pad in case you needed to call a timeout. And luckily they didn't. They inbounded the ball. They got the alley-oop dunk to Luke Cornett. Terrible defense by the Sixers. Great play drawn up by Missoula. A nice pick set by Jayson Tatum underneath, occupying 2 defenders. So great job there. Yeah, you lost that extra timeout, but you needed that timeout there, so you didn't lose one down the stretch just in case you needed it. Then, under 2 minutes, now you have your 2 timeouts. You have a challenge that you feel good about making on what would have been an out of bounds that was going to Philly, where Grant Williams clearly didn't touch the ball. I think they originally got the call right. Then somehow it felt like the ref was like, oh, I called it the wrong way. Did I signal Boston? I always said Philly. I meant to signal Philly. No, he seemed like he got talked into it, right? Because he probably sat there and said, well, it looked like an air ball to me, but it's Joel Embiid. I can't imagine that Joel Embiid would have airballed it there. So, yeah, let's just say I made the wrong call. I signaled it the wrong way. And luckily, the Celtics had a challenge. I mean, Al Horford was pissed. Al Horford was pissed on the bench because he's like, come on, you made us waste our challenge. You could see him on the TV saying, you made us waste our challenge. Good challenge there. Call was reversed. That worked out. So just overall, good coaching job by Joe Mazzulla. Just a great job all the way around. Again, this is a game that the Celtics needed to win this one, and they managed to get a really good, satisfying win. All right, I got to mention this because I'll be doing a post trade deadline podcast, wrapping things up. We'll see what the Celtics are going to do, but oh my God, Kevin Durant's going to the Phoenix Suns. The Brooklyn Nets are suddenly blown up. Celtics beat them, and the whole thing fell apart. Kyrie Irving's went to Dallas. Kevin Durant's going to Phoenix. And who knows what's going to happen after that. Jay Crowder is in Brooklyn now. They're looking to trade him. I don't think they should get Jay Crowder. But Mikal Bridges, Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson, and Jay Crowder, and 4 first-round picks. Unprotected picks. This is amazing. What a haul. Kevin Durant, TJ Warren go to Phoenix. So Brooklyn, completely retooling here. Be interesting to see what they do. Toronto gets Jakob Poeltl. So I never thought the Celtics were going to get Jakob Poeltl. That happened in the middle of the night. Then a 3-team trade, Lakers and Minnesota and Utah. During the game, we're like, what the hell is going on here? During the game, Russell Westbrook to Utah. He'll end up getting bought out. Jared Vanderbilt and I forget who else went to Minnesota. They went to L.A. L.A. gets D'Angelo Russell. They get Jared Vanderbilt. That's another wild trade. So some good depth. LA did a good job, I think. But then Phoenix went out and said, like, no, we're gonna be the power in the West. Tons of trades going on, and they're all happening while I'm sitting there trying to write my piece for Boston Sports Journal. And I'm sitting there going, oh my God, what's happening? What's happening here? Just one after another. I was like, oh, let me just go check out Twitter. And then I refresh it, and it became like, oh, what? There's something that happened? Okay. So yeah, it was a wild kind of flurry in the middle of the night, to the point where Grant Williams was saying trades are happening in the darkness, dark of night. Trades happening in the dark of night, and he was laughing. Again, we'll be wrapping it up on the trade special here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Go to the Locked On NBA feed on YouTube, where we'll be discussing all of that. I will have everything. If the Celtics make a trade, then I'll have that. And if they don't, we'll analyze what they could have done, maybe should have done. It's all coming up tomorrow on the Locked On Celtics podcast. So for now, that's going to wrap it up here. Again, great win for the Celtics. Excited about that. Hopefully they don't let down on Friday against Charlotte. I'll be here to talk about it all. So make sure you're subscribed wherever you get your podcast. Watch the show on YouTube. Hop into the comment section. Lots of great conversations going on in the comment section. Good group of Celtics fans here on the Locked On Podcast, Locked On Celtics Podcast YouTube page. So subscribe. If you are a subscriber, share the podcast. Tell your friends. Tell everybody they should be listening to and watching the Locked On Celtics podcast here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.